everybody, it's Cyclo Coaster, and we're back with another deck profile. So, oh my gosh, I got this new mat. Look at it, bam! Look at this thing, yeah. Cool. But anyway, one thing before we start the video, I showed off my mats because I had to. But anyway, before I start the video, I want to give a big thanks to my friend Tristan for helping me make all the intros and all the editing that he's done. He's basically been my editor. He's helped me like learn a few things. Like now I make my own thumbnails, and now I edit some of the stuff, and like I do it better now than before, I think, at least. But he's just really good at it, and he's really helped me out a lot recently, just with like making intros, making thumbnails, teaching how to do a bunch of stuff. So I just wanted to thank him in this. And now let's get into the deck profile. So in this profile, I'm going to explain what all the cards do, and then give you some cool tips on the deck. Yeah, okay. One thing, we're going to start with the extra deck because it's the least important part of this deck specifically, and I can breeze through it pretty quickly. Now, the extra deck, honestly, matters very little, but there are a few cards that I do think that you should include. One of the cards is the Dark Charmer Gloomy. The other card is, Baguska, and the other card is Abyss Dweller. So yeah, this deck can make rank 4s sometimes. More times than not, it can make rank 4s. But not more times than not. If you open Delia and Kamika at the same time in a way to, and like the ability to summon Delia, then you can make a rank 4. And honestly, these cards are really good in the meta. The Abyss Dweller just kills what's it called, tier elements. Baguska is just always a good card, and Dark is just a good card as well. Although Dark you could switch for lineup, but Dark is just better if you have 2 Arlequinos and you really don't need them, or they're like you need something to do something, then that's a way to get them. And I also play Unicorn in the deck, but honestly the extra deck is something that is really up to you. The main thing that you're gonna use the extra deck for is Pot of Extravagance, which if you don't know, it just banishes 6 from your extra deck to draw you 2 cards. I will go over what these cards do if you guys don't know. So what a Dark does is if this card is always treated as a familiar possessed card, you can target 1 dark monster in your opponent's graveyard, special summon to the links on this card points to, and if it's sent to the graveyard, you can search for a dark monster, which is good. Level 1 to 4 dark monster. Then Abyss Dweller, while this card has a material attached to it that was originally water, all water monsters you control gain 500 attack. Once per turn, quick effect, you can detach 1 material card from this card, and your opponent cannot activate any cards or effects in their graveyard this turn. So that just kills tier elements. And then Baguska, basically this has a long effect, but while it's in defense position, all your opponent's monsters are switched into defense position, and the effects of defense position monsters are negated. So basically it's a skill drain that switches your opponent's monster to defense position. So it's not very good against link monsters, but it's very good against everything else. So that's why I play those, and I would play 3 copies of all of them in your extra deck, and that doesn't leave a lot of space. Maybe you can put Zeus in there or something, I don't know. But those are the main cards that I think you should include. Again, I might be wrong, but if you want to play the extra deck a different way, that's up to you guys. But anyway, now let's go into the deck profile. So first, we have 3 copies of Amazement Administrator Arlequino. Now, this is the main monster in your deck. This is what you're trying to get out most of the time. This is what you want to go for. This is your end game. And now, why is this your end game? And I'll go over his effect and show you guys why. So once per turn, you can banish any number of Amazement trap cards from your graveyard, target that many cons your opponent controls, destroy them. Also, you can only activate each of the following effects of Amazement Arlequino once per turn. If a trap card is activated except during the damage step, you can special summon this card from your hand. If your opponent normal or special summons a monster except during the damage step, you can target 1 of those face-up cards they control, equip 1 attraction trap from your deck into the targets. Now, what is really good about this card is that while it's on the field, it just equips a trap from the deck, and which is crazy, but it also works like multi-faker. So if your opponent activates a trap and then you activate an effect to search this card, which you have like a few searches in the deck, you can actually summon him right away. Or if you activate one of your traps and clear the field with let's say Torrential Tribute, you can just summon Arlecchino, and then you'd have follow up. Whereas you wouldn't before if it weren't Arlecchino, if Arlecchino weren't that way. But Arlecchino is really cool, and he works really well with the deck, especially because it's a trap deck. It's a more control focused deck. But anyway, let's go on to the next card. Now, this is the card that facilitates your rank 4s, Amaze Assistant Delia. You can reveal one attraction trap card in your hand. Special summon this card from your hand, and while it's on the field, you can send one attraction trap from your hand or face up on the field to the graveyard, and set one attraction trap directly from your deck to your spawn trap card zone, and you can only use each effect of Maze Assistant Delia once per turn. So it's really good to cycle through your trap cards that you don't need. Say you have 2 copies of one, and all of them are once per turn. So if you have 2 copies of one, you can cycle one of them for the other, and which is just really good. But most of the time, it works out better because you can special summon her, and we are playing the adventure stuff, which I'll go over in a bit. But next is what you would call the main starter of your the deck, if it weren't for the adventure stuff. But anyway, that's Amaze Attendant Kamika. Now, what Kamika does is when this card is normal summoned, you can set one attraction traps straight from your deck to the field, and you can target one of your attraction traps equipped to a monster, equip it to an amazing monster you control, or one face up a monster your opponent controls. Now, that doesn't target, so that's a way of getting around targeting protection if your opponent does have it. But this card is really cool because this way, if you have an attraction trap attached to one of your monsters, and you need to use one of the other effects that the trap has, because most of the traps have 2 effects when either they're equipped to your monster or to your opponent's monster, and Kamika gets you both of those effects, not on the same turn because they are still once per turn, but she does get you both of the effects. And I'm going to actually show off a combo with Kamika. Not a combo, but one interaction that you can do with Kamika that you might not know and might not be very intuitive if you don't play the deck and figure out the rulings. Anyway, we're also playing one Wandering Griffin Rider and one Illegal Knight. I'll go over their effects now. So Wandering Griffin Rider, you can special summon while you control no monsters or you control an adventure token, and while you control an adventure token, you can negate an effect that your opponent activates and shuffle this card back into the deck. Then Illegal Knight, what this card does is if you control no monsters or you control an adventure token, quick effect, you can special summon this card to your field, and if, as a quick effect, you can if you control an adventure token, you can bounce, which means put cards back into your hand. Put 2 cards back into your opponent's target 2 cards, put them back into the hand, and then give this the control of this card to your opponent. Sorry, I don't know what's happening to me today. I'm just tired, I guess. But anyway, let's go on to the spell card. So we are playing, actually, no, we're still missing 2. So next, we're playing 2 Water Enchanters with the Temple. So we're not going all out on the adventure stuff because I do want to play more trap cards, and I think the trap cards are going to be more impactful. The only real reason that we're playing adventure right now instead of more hand traps, more trap cards, is because I think the adventure cards are really good with this deck, and I think that it's just the problem with the deck is if they have a Harpy's Feather Duster, if they have anything to clear your back row, you're basically out of the game unless you have an Arlecchino and they activate a trap card, or you chain a trap card and then activate Arlecchino. And even then, it's not enough to win you the game. So the adventure stuff is there basically just to protect your trap cards. It's basically there just to give you an Omni-Gate, give you a little bit of an extra push, just because you don't really special summon in this deck. Or sorry, you don't really use your normal summon effect in this deck all that much. So yeah, most of the time the adventure stuff is just better. So what this card does is you can banish it from your hand or discard or from the graveyard to search for a Rite of Aramesir. That's the important effect that you need to know. The other thing is it can search as field spell. It's on the field, but you don't use any of those. So, but then 2 Rite of Aramesir. So what Rite of Aramesir, again, not maxing out on the adventure stuff, just there as a backup. If you control no adventure token, you can special summon one adventure token with 200 attack, 2,000 attack, 2,000 defense, and if you and then place one faithful adventure from your deck into the spell and trap card zone, you cannot activate the effect of normal summon monsters for the rest of the turn. Then we have the Fateful Adventure and the Dracoback, the two targets for the thing. So Fateful Adventure, what it is you can search for a card that lists not a card, a monster that lists an adventure token in it, and then discard a card. And then while a card is it's normal or a special summon, you can search for a equip card that lists adventure token, which is going to be Dracoback. And Dracoback, while it's equipped to a normal monster, you can bounce a card on the field. You can bounce a card that your opponent controls, which is really useful. Then let's go into the actual amazement part of the deck. I guess the monsters were part of the amazement deck, but not the adventure stuff. Then amazing time ticket. So this card's actually really cool. It's one of the coolest rotas that I've ever seen. So what this does is you pay 800 life points, and depending whose turn it is, if it's your turn, you add one amazement card from your deck to your hand, which is usually the monsters are all called amazement. And then during your opponent's turn, you set one attraction trap directly from your deck, which are all the amazement traps, and it can be activated this turn. So it's a really cool rota, especially for a trap deck. It's basically just like Trap Trick, which is cool. Then 3 Pot of Extravagance. What this does, you either banish 3 or 6 cards randomly from your extra deck, and then you draw 2 cards. It's just always to have more. It's good to have more cards in your trap deck. 1 double or nothing for the Utopia double and Utopia stuff. What this does is for your opponents, if there's an attack negated, you can target that monster. It can attack again, and its attack is double during the damage step. And I do play the Utopia double thing in this deck because it's good. And if you draw it, it's just a free discard for the amazing stuff. Now, these cards are the ones that I want to go over. These 6 copies of cards. So the Horror House and the Rapid Racing. Now, I think Horror House is the weaker one of this format, just because it doesn't hit both of the big main decks, whereas the Rapid Racing does. So I'll actually go over this one first. So what this does is you can target one amazing monster you control or a face-up monster your opponent controls and equip this card to it. And then you have to activate this effect on a separate chain. If it's equipped to you, you can target one effect monster your opponent controls and negate its effects until the end of the turn. So it's imperm. Or if it's equipped to your opponent, you can change that monster to face down defense position. So it's a Book of Moon if it's equipped to your monster, which is really good because if you know Splight, you know that it has to have a level 2 monster on the field for anything to happen. So if they don't have a level 2 monster, meaning it's flipped face down, then they can't really do anything most of the time, unless they have the frogs. But even then, if you have this and the Rapid Racing, there's not really much they can do. So, let's go on to the next card. And with this next card, I'll show you the interaction with Kamika. So this Rapid Racing, I think, is really good. It's really good in this format because of the 2 effects that it has. So Rapid Racing, what it does is target one amazing monster you control or one face-up monster your opponent controls and equip this card to it. And then on a separate chain, if it's equipped to you, you target one monster in your opponent's graveyard, or target one card in your opponent's graveyard, not monster. And change the equipped monster's battle position, and if you do, shuffle that target into the deck. So it's basically like DD Crow, but a little not better because they can still reuse the card, but it's good. And then the other effect is equipped to your opponent. You can increase the equipped monster's level by 1 until the end phase, until the end of this turn, and if you do, change its battle position. So why this card is so good is because against Splight, you can equip it to their monster and change their battle position and increase their level by 1, so they don't have any level 2s on the field. And if it's equipped to your monster, if you're playing against tier elements, you can just shuffle back the thing that they want to fuse with, right? So it's just really good in that respect. It's just really good in both of these formats. And now I'll show the interaction with Kamika. So let's say you have Rapid Racing equipped to your thing, and your opponent's playing Splight. Let's just say this other Kamika is a Splight monster. So what Kamika can do is, during your turn, you can equip, or during your opponent's turn, you can equip Rapid Racing onto the Kamika, onto the level 2 Splite, whatever, that they summon, and then switch its battle position, increase its battle by 1. Then activate Kamika to equip the Rapid Racing to your monster, and then on your turn, when it switches, if they try to Splite Elf or like revive anything, you can just shuffle it back. But that's not the interaction that I want to point out. So the interaction that I want to point out is, say, let's say your monster, you activate Rapid Racing, equip it to your monster, and then after, on like their turn, they're targeting Kamika for something, for like they want to get rid of your monster before you so that your trap can't go off, right? So what they're going to do is, let's say they destroy it with something, they target something for destruction, and what you can do is actually you can activate Rapid Racing first and then activate Kamika next. And what happens there is the effect of Rapid Racing, while it's activated, it's counting as equipped to Kamika. So the effect that's going to activate is going to be the effect to shuffle back your opponent's card from the graveyard. But then Kamika activates as Chainlink 2. So then Chainlink 2 goes first, and it switches to your opponent's monster. So let's say it's a level 2 or a Tier Elements monster or whatever. So then the monster is good, and then Chainlink 1 is going to go off. Your opponent's monster is going to get switched, and their card is still going to get shuffled. So it counts as being equipped to your monster. That's the effect that goes off. But then your opponent monster gets like the cost of the effect, if that makes sense. So that's it, and it works with any one of the amazement spells. So if you Book of Moon, if you say you want to Book of Moon your Kamika for some reason, and your Horror House is equipped to your opponent's monster, you can activate the Horror House and then activate Kamika to equip it to Kamika or any of your amazement monsters, or any of your and then your amazement monster will get Book of Moon, which is just a really cool interaction that I think is awesome. Then we have one merry-go-round. So what this does is, while it's equipped to you, your monster gains 500 attack, and if it would be destroyed by battle or card effect, you can send this card to the graveyard instead. And if it's equipped to your opponent, your opponent's monster loses 500 attack for every attraction card on the field, which doesn't really come up, but it can, who knows. Then 3, Cyclo Coaster. This is basically you're out to any of the Mystic Mine or any of the Spell and Trap card shenanigans. So what this does is, when it's equipped to you, it's target 1 Spell and Trap card your opponent controls, send both of it and this card to the graveyard, and if it's equipped to your opponent, you add 1 amazement monster from your deck to your hand, and if you do, send this card to the graveyard. So it's either a Rhoda or an MST, so it's pretty good. Then I had an extra flex spot in the deck, so I put the Gravedigger Trap Hole because I think it's really good this format. What it does is, when your opponent activates a monster effect in the hand or graveyard, when your opponent's when your opponent's banished monster's effect is activated, negate its effect, and if you do, inflict 2,000 damage. And then the last cards are going to be like the Floodgates. I think Torrential Tribute is really good in this deck. Even against Tier Elements, just because you have Arlecchino, because so what this card does is, when a monster is summoned, destroy all monsters on the field. It's really simple. You just destroy all monsters on the field, and the cool thing is that because it's a trap, you can activate it and then wait for everything to resolve, and your opponent's board is cleared, right? Or you bait it out of negate, and then you can summon Arlecchino and get Arlecchino's effect to equip with whatever. And then there can be only one. Every single card, except for Kamika and Delia for some reason, are different types. So you can use this card and basically have every single monster in your deck on the field except Kamika and Delia at the same time. But you can have the adventure stuff, you can have the amazement stuff, you can have basically everything on the field, which is just really cool. So what this card does is, each player can only control 1 monster type. If a player controls 2 or more of the same type, they must send some to the graveyard, so they control no more than 1 monster of that type. And they can't attempt to summon another one of that type, even if it's a fusion or a like any kind of extra deck play, which is just really cool. Anyway, that's going to do it for the deck. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. I think this is a really cool deck, and like it can do pretty well if it has a good pilot, I think. Although it is not as competitive as some other decks, because it's just like it's not the most powerful deck in the format. It's definitely like you might do really well with it, just because like you're a good player and you know when like the choke points of everything or how to play your deck really well. But this is just a really fun deck that I think is really cool and has some interesting synergies with the meta, and I want to share it with you guys. So if you guys enjoyed, please leave a like, maybe subscribe, and if you want, ring the notification bell for my videos. I will see you guys later. I hope you have a great day.